look at the different players he's beating that badly, and also on different surfaces.
Lately, everyone has had something to say about Jannik Sinner. We've seen unfiltered opinions and the behind-the-scenes buzz about Sinner's form on clay, his game, and everything in between. From the end of last year right up until this moment, Sinner's narrative has been extremely compelling. Some think he's the best from the new gen, even better than Alcaraz, while others still think he needs to find improvement in a few areas. And don't even get me started on what Rafa said about the Italian. This is what tennis legends think about Jannik Sinner. Sinner pulled out of Madrid and withdrew from Rome due to a nagging right hip injury, and it had me wondering just if some opinions had changed about him. At the start of the clay season, Novak gave a detailed response when he was asked about Sinner in Monte Carlo. He basically said that Sinner was the best player in the world and didn't hold back from showering praise on the Italian.
I mean, he's been playing some amazing tennis, and he's been the best player in the world this year so far, no doubt. He's been, probably playing the tennis of his life. I mean, he lost only one match in the entire year, won 3 or 4 tournaments. So just the level has been incredible to witness, to watch. And, he's a great guy, he's really devoted. He's got a really good team of people around him, and it doesn't come as a surprise, really, because I know how much work he puts in day in, day out. And, he was always very talented and playing powerful tennis, but I think now he does it with more margin. He doesn't make as many mistakes.
Sinner did make it to the semis in Monte Carlo, but many fans argue that he could have made the final and won the title there if not for that costly umpire call. Fast forward to Madrid, where many of us, including myself, had Sinner as one of our favorites for the title. But I guess we might need to wait a little longer, seeing that he's been struggling a bit with his health. Sinner gave us an update on the injury situation on his Instagram, and we hope that it's nothing too serious. With Roland Garros around the corner already, Sinner's fitness team is probably sweating to make sure he recovers as quickly as possible. But just before his latest injury, we saw some crazy takes on Sinner, and I bet you already know who's right at the top of the list. Ahead of the clay court swing, former world #1 Andy Roddick compared Sinner's dominance on the hard courts to prime Rafa on clay on his Served with Roddick podcast. I personally found that take quite interesting when I first heard it. Sinner to prime Rafa on clay? That's crazy. But as Roddick went on to explain, it was easy to see where he was coming from in terms of some of the statistical comps. Here's what he said.
To draw a comp to what Sinner just did in Miami, you have to go to prime Nadal on clay in a Masters 1000. That is what you're comparing this dominance to. Sinner this weekend in Miami to Rafa's best ever finish as far as games lost in a Masters 1000. Sinner in Miami, Rafa prime on clay. That's the comp.
It's pretty obvious to any casual fan at this point that Sinner is not as dominant on clay as he's been on the hard courts. Results-wise and historically speaking, clay is literally Sinner's worst surface. Apart from the title in Umag, which he won in 2022, Sinner actually hasn't won any other ATP title on the surface. But to be honest, even if Sinner doesn't win a big title on clay this season, I'm not going to be too bothered because it's literally just the physical issues stopping him, nothing else. Meanwhile, renowned tennis coach and commentator Paul Annacone was surprised by how quickly Sinner adapted to clay. Before now, everyone was like, let's see how Sinner will play on clay, blah blah blah. But Jannik has proven the doubters and naysayers wrong yet again. Annacone pointed out Sinner's disposition as something that hasn't changed about him. Speaking about his experience with Sinner, Annacone says that the Italian hasn't changed one bit since he met him 4 years ago, also commenting on his emotional stability. Here's the gist of what he said.
Is that look at the different players he's beating that badly, and also on different surfaces. And this should be a transition week, right? This should be a week for Sinner to start to get used to the clay. That took all of about 3.5 seconds for him to get used to the clay. And when you see somebody that's that comfortable, I think, look out, everybody else. The thing that's to me, most promising about this young man is his disposition. It hasn't changed. I met him for the first time 4 years ago at Indian Wells. Humble, nice kid, soft-spoken, just goes about his business, ticks all the professionalism boxes. And the gap between the valleys and the peaks isn't that much emotionally. So to me, when you're like that, it's much easier to sustain a very high level because you take it as a grain of salt. Sure, you appreciate it, but he knows he didn't just cure cancer. He just knows he's playing good tennis. So I think that disposition helps him a lot.
For those of you who don't know Paul Annacone, he's a highly respected figure in the tennis community. As a player, he reached the Wimbledon quarterfinal in 1984 and was world number 12 in his prime. He also won the Australian Open doubles title with Christo van Rensburg in 1985. Since his retirement, Annacone has coached big names like Pete Sampras, Roger Federer, Tim Henman, Wawrinka, Sloane Stephens, and Taylor Fritz. But back to the point, being emotionally stable has helped Sinner to maintain a very high level during games. We saw how that played out in the Australian Open final earlier this year. Personally, I can count the number of times I've seen Sinner being emotional on one hand. Even when he's nervous, angry, or frustrated, Sinner always has a calm demeanor. How does he do it? Is this a learned behavior, or is it just his personality? Let me digress a bit and talk a little bit about Andrei Rublev, who has me absolutely eating my words from last week. Rublev has been cool, calm, and collected under pressure, and it's coincided with him playing some great tennis in Madrid. Personally, I couldn't be happier for him. Point being made, Sinner is a reference point for the new gen when it comes to the mental and emotional aspects of the game. But let's switch gears a little bit and talk about this next take from yet another renowned tennis legend. Czech-born American Martina Navratilova spent 332 weeks on top of the women's ranking and won 18 Grand Slams in singles. We know Martina for her fierce nature on and off the court, so when I saw her comments about Jannik a few weeks ago, I had to tune in. Have a listen to what she said right here.
And yes, he's been the most consistent, and his average day is better than everybody else's average day at the moment. He's taken it to a whole new level, so it gives him a lot of peace of mind because he knows he doesn't have to play out of his socks. He doesn't have to redline anything to win matches. The other guys are the ones that have to redline, so that gives you a lot of confidence.
I agree with Martina that Sinner has been the most consistent player this year. I think it's pretty obvious. And yes, his average level is better than almost every other tennis player. But if we're about to talk about the peak level between Sinner and Alcaraz, I think it's going to be a tough call depending on the surface. And that's why it's so disappointing to see that we didn't get a Sinner-Alcaraz match in Madrid. It would have been a blockbuster for sure. These two have been battling it out a lot over the last 2 or 3 seasons. They've gotten to see each other's game up close and personal, and they're now at an even 4-all in their rivalry. Alcaraz was the man who ended Sinner's unbeaten start to the year at Indian Wells. Carlitos knew that he needed to pull off something extraordinary to get the job done in the desert. Alcaraz believes that the only way to beat this current version of Jannik Sinner is to be at 100% yourself.
Well, every time that I'm gonna face Jannik, I'm gonna get nervous. That's for sure, because I know that I have to play. I'm 100% if I want to beat him.
But Chris Evert's ex-husband and former world number 21 John Lloyd doesn't think that Alcaraz at 100% can best Sinner at 100%. Speaking on the Tennis Channel Inside In podcast, Lloyd explained that he thinks Sinner's ceiling is actually higher than Alcaraz's. But then he also admitted that both players were untouchable. He said, quote, "These two guys, I tell you, the other guys are going to have to really step up because they're going to run away with it. We always say he's on the big come up, but I tell you, when those two are playing at their best, no one can get close, I don't think," end quote. Still on Sinner and Alcaraz, a certain tennis legend doesn't believe much has changed in tennis, even with these two sharing 3 Grand Slams and several Masters 1000 titles between them. Rafa's statement at the Madrid Open press conference showed that he was firmly behind his arch-rival Novak Djokovic when asked about this current generation of tennis players. Rafa admitted that Sinner and Alcaraz have been brilliant, but remained firm in his opinion that tennis hasn't moved to the next generation just yet. In Rafa's words, quote, "Of course they are amazing players, but at the same time, if we put in perspective that Novak Djokovic won 3 of 4 Grand Slams and played in the final of another one, I mean, he's from my generation. So of course they're doing amazing things. But on the other hand, a player from my generation and similar, I mean, of course, a little bit better numbers, but similar level at the level that we played. For a long time, still having a lot of success. That says that tennis has amazing new champions, but at the same time, things haven't changed that much," end quote. In the grand scheme of things, I agree with Rafa that nothing much has changed. Sinner is box office money, no doubt, but at the same time, even during the Big Three's run of dominance, we still saw very talented players giving them a run for their money. It goes without saying that we'll need to see this level of dominance from Sinner and Alcaraz consistently over the next few years before we can really start considering them as the GOATs of the next gen. At the same time, we now know that Novak Djokovic is now guaranteed to celebrate his 37th birthday as world number 1 because it's now mathematically impossible for the Joker to lose his number 1 status before May 27th. That's 426 weeks as world number 1. Somebody pinch me. I think he might get to 450. Meanwhile, even if Sinner overtakes Djokovic on the 27th, Novak will still be the top seed at Roland Garros. Crazy to think that Novak continues to balance his schedule and skip tournaments, and still, these guys haven't been able to overtake him just yet. I should also point out that the ELO system has Sinner at the number 5 spot at the moment. Look at the guys who are ahead of him. Yes, I know the ELO ratings might be subject to recency bias, but I'm curious to know how you guys would rate Sinner ahead of the French Open. Do you see him reaching the semis, the final, or even lifting the trophy? Personally, I still have Novak as my dark horse favorite because he's well rested and he always manages to bring out his best tennis during slams. Meanwhile, both Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz are dealing with injuries. That being said, I wouldn't be too surprised to see something crazy happen because I was definitely taught some prediction lessons from Madrid. I mean, nobody saw that semifinal lineup coming. Never say never in tennis, right? That said, we also need to talk about what coaching Jannik Sinner feels like. Former Australian tennis player and Jannik Sinner's current coach Darren Cahill has let the world know what he really thinks about Sinner on a number of occasions. Cahill says that there's no difference between the person Sinner is on and off the court. He also shared his thoughts on Sinner's hunger and drive to be the best player in the world, saying that although we call him the Fox, Sinner is just as deadly as a tiger. But according to Cahill, there's still a lot of room for improvement in Sinner's game. Quote, "We've been working on improving his serve, improving his transition game, his slice backhand to use it as a change-up shot, direction on his forehand, and return of service. But credit where it's due, he's playing terrific tennis at the moment," end quote, says Cahill. The Aussie also mentioned that Sinner's generation is privileged to have seen the previous generations push for improvements even in their mid to late 30s. Here's a snippet of what he said.
An athlete and a person, I would say, are pretty similar. There's not too much difference between the player that you see on court and the player and the person that he is off the court. And I think that says a lot to who he is. There's no fake agenda with the way he is. He's passionate, he has fun, he's not afraid to smile, he's a bit of a jokester, he's got a hunger about him. And he's got you can see it in his eyes. I know he's called the Fox, but he's got a little tiger in his stomach and he wants it badly.
Cahill also worked with former world number 1 and 8-time Grand Slam champion Andre Agassi. He mentioned that it was all business with Agassi because the American wanted to become a better tennis player in his 30s. And now, just by watching Sinner play, Agassi has admitted that he has a soft spot for Sinner's excellent ball striking. I mean, who wouldn't?
Listen, I always have a soft spot for just a great ball striker. You know, it's just, there's something about it that just makes me go, oh. I mean, it was the only piece I had on the tennis court is when I hit a ball dead perfect. I mean, literally. And so, you know, I watch somebody like Sinner hit the ball. Yeah. And I just go, that's got to feel good. You know,
the sound takes you back.
Yeah, the sound and yeah, so that. But I also like the IQ of it all.
And then we have former world number 1 and 6-time Grand Slam champion Boris Becker, who still feels like he's watching a younger version of himself when he sees Sinner play. Speaking live from Madrid during a press conference on the 25th edition of the Laureus World Sports Awards, Becker said, quote, "I love Sinner. In him, I see my younger self. I love his mental attitude, whether he loses or wins." Comparing Sinner with Alcaraz, Becker said, quote, "He could not be more different from Alcaraz in how they play, but both have an incredible instinct to fight to the last and to engage the audience. I think Alcaraz is more spectacular, is a great hitter, perhaps is more charming, and manages to reach the audience more, but Jannik usually wins the last point with his attitude and his way of being on the court. He has much more power than last year. It's incredible, and he knows how to play to the end and has an innate sense of competition," end quote. Well said, Boris. I mean, these guys are so good, it's not even fair. Don't believe me? Ask Roger Federer. Federer never got to face Sinner before retiring almost 2 years ago, but the Swiss believes that it would have been unfair if he faced Jannik Sinner in a professional match at the time. He said, quote, "Well, right now it would not be fair. He would be the big champion. Me, I would be chasing the balls," end quote. Federer has been happy to cheer next-gen players from the sideline without putting them under too much pressure. And I think that's the best way to go about things so we don't end up holding players to impossible standards. Meanwhile, let's have a listen to what some of Sinner's colleagues had to say about his game. After Sinner won the Australian Open, Nick Kyrgios jokingly said that he wanted Sinner to be his coach so that he could also win a Grand Slam.
"How much can I pay you to be my coach so I can win a Grand Slam?"
You almost had me there, Nick. But honestly, one of the things that stands out for me is the tremendous amount of respect the current players have for Sinner. Unlike other players who divide opinions, Sinner seems to be in everyone's good book, not just Nick. Here's what Alex de Minaur had to say about Jannik Sinner after Sinner beat him in the Canadian Open final last year.
I'd like to start off by saying a huge congratulations to Jannik. To you and to your whole team, you deserve it. The way you carry yourself on the court and off the court, I've got tremendous respect for you. So it was a great battle. We started as doubles partners. It didn't go so well in the doubles, but we both made it to the final. So congratulations to you and the team.
To be fair, almost everyone saw Sinner's rise coming. Novak Djokovic.
You could see already back then that he's timing the ball so well. So I'm really glad for him because he's a very nice guy.
Andy Murray.
He feels like he's playing better than 380 in the world. I think, you know, he will keep moving up the rankings.
Alexander Zverev.
He's an up-and-coming superstar. I think he's going to be top 10 very shortly. I think he's going to be competing for the biggest tournaments in the world.
And Stan Wawrinka.
He's a great player, good mentality, good guy, and for sure he has a bright future.
Oh, and I almost forgot to talk about the man who's now lost to Sinner 5 consecutive times.
He's playing well now, he doesn't miss much and he can make winners.
No other player has had to deal with this version of Sinner more often than Daniil Medvedev. And you've got to feel for the Russian because he's been getting smacked even when he isn't playing badly. Medvedev had a lot to say about this year's Australian Open final and Miami final losses to Sinner. As a hardcourt specialist himself, it must have been tough for Medvedev to take those losses. But now that the clay season has brought some form of reset, Medvedev will be hoping to find solutions to his Jannik Sinner puzzle ahead of their next meeting, whenever that is. But back to you guys. What are your thoughts on the opinions of these tennis legends? Do you agree or disagree? Well, let me tell you something. Sinner is now 28-2 this year. His 16-0 unbeaten start to the year remains one of the best starts to a season on the ATP Tour. In fact, only the big three and Pete Sampras have managed to do better. And while the buzz seems to have died down a little bit given the injuries, best believe that we can expect a lot more from Sinner this year. It all comes down to this. In my opinion, Jannik Sinner is by no means overhyped. I also think that there are no real right or wrong answers when having these discussions, and personally, I'm just happy to talk about them and also hear what you guys think. If you loved this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button and help us towards our goal of 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And if you missed last week's videos, no worries, I have them showing on the screen for you right here.